She's only 2 years old. She's armed only with a kickball, and we will never forget her. On our recent delegation to El Salvador, our group visited the region of Distrito Italia, there to engage with the youth and adults of that community, to hear their stories, to offer our support, and to celebrate the good news of God's reign in our midst. After the presentation, we stood on the playground, just talking, visiting, meeting one another, and a little 2-year-old girl approached a member of our delegation with a kickball. She rolled it to her, and it was clear she wanted to play. Someone said, "She wants you to kick it." So, when she rolled it again, this member of our delegation gave the ball a kick, and this little girl jumped up and down with glee. Then she ran after the ball, retrieved it, came back, and did it again, rolling the ball to this member of our delegation who kicked the ball. The little girl jumped up and down, ran and retrieved it, and came back again. Tirelessly, she performed this routine, first with this woman whom she engaged, and then moving on to me and several other members of the group. She's only 2 years old and armed only with a kickball, and we will never forget her. Her glee, her joy, her generosity. The human family breathe the same breath. The book of Genesis tells us that God breathes life into all of us. And then we have to learn to breathe together. I'll confess that before and during this journey, I lived with some anxiety and some dread. Because on this delegation to El Salvador, there is always an invitation from the youth to play some games, to engage in what we call icebreakers, to venture outside our comfort zones, and ultimately to make a fool of ourselves so as to bond with one another. I was anxious about these games. I dreaded them. And yet, they built the bonds of new relationship. In one of these games, we were asked to pretend as if we were floating through space, all as individuals. A room of us, 40 of us, all alone. And then they asked us to draw together in groups of 4, or 7, or 12. The lesson being that we will survive only when we draw together, when we bond, when we form community. And not only will we survive, but we will thrive. That game and all the others we played taught me something important, something that's easy to take for granted and overlook. That the journey of life, this delegation to El Salvador, and our relationship with our family there are all about encuentro, encounter. That as we travel through this journey of life, bonding together leads us not only to survive, but to thrive and build the reign of God. And so we have to learn how to breathe together. To breathe together and remember the life that sustains us all. And so as we visited with the women of Espiritu Santo, whose husbands and sons have been wrongly imprisoned, as we visited with our family at Palo Grande and Suchitoto, Paso Puente, and Romero, we realized again our call to breathe together as a human family, and to breathe together with St. Oscar Romero and Blessed Rutilio Grande and Dorothy Cazale and Ida Ford and Maura Clark and Jean Donovan, the 7 Jesuits who were murdered at the University of Central America, their housekeeper and her daughter, and all those who gave their lives in the midst of a bloody civil war, to breathe together with them, to breathe together today with all of the human family, and with Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Encuentro, encounter in the Eucharist. The day we departed El Salvador, we had the incredible privilege of celebrating Mass together at the place where St. Oscar Romero was shot to death as he celebrated Mass on March 24th, 1980, Divina Providencia Convent in San Salvador. And as the celebrant of the Mass, I was humbled and awed to stand at that same altar on such holy ground. It occurred to me the day before, when I woke up that morning, that Oscar Romero was completely vulnerable at that altar. He knew that, and he surrendered to it. Encuentro, encounter, Eucharist.